I hear staunch supporters of socialism get certain things mixed up. A lot of times when they're making the argument, if I ask the question, can you give me an example of positive socialism? More often than not, the example that's given is a country that is not necessarily a socialist country, but it's normally a country that has a capitalist economy, and they've got components of socialized of socialism. And while scrolling through Facebook, I noticed that somebody hit the nail on the head, and it was from posted on, I think, Rowdy Conservatives, and I quote, "European countries don't have democratic socialism. They are capitalist economies with large welfare systems that they can only afford because they have largely outsourced their national defense to the United States military, to the United States via military alliance." Okay. Well, my thing is this: if they have the luxury of doing that, then they have a distinct advantage that the United States doesn't have. If countries are able to implement socialized education, socialized healthcare, and other social programs, if they're able to do so because their structure is of such that they actually have a surplus, then it stands to reason they should be able to do that. They should be able to offer that. Now, on the flip side, the United States is not built like that, and I don't think people understand that. The very platform, darn near, of socialized anything isn't practical for the society that we have now, for the economic structure that we have now. It isn't practical. The very people that they want to tax heavily, and we love hearing stories about, hey, let's stick it to the big man so that the little man can have, but that's not necessarily the entire story. And in a layman's version of that story, it goes like this. Supposing you do tax the big guy out of his existence. Supposing you do that. How does he pay for the little guy? Because what we fail to understand is that the big guy is giving employment to the little guy, i.e., the middle class and the working class. So when you tax businesses, it's not as simple as just being like, okay, you're going to pay extra, pal. The reality of it is this. Okay, we're going to tax you. And the taxed business has decisions to make. Because now that another chunk of their money is taken out, they may have to cut jobs in order to pay for the employees, the essential employees that they have. And now those essential employees are working many times harder. Or those businesses don't have the demand as far as whatever industry that they're in. They don't have the demand to sustain through any other cuts. Thus, the little man on the totem pole loses out, finds himself or herself finding a job. Now, granted, there are people that get these tax breaks. There are business owners that get these tax breaks, and they're corrupt. The money doesn't result always and that's ethical. That's a lack of ethics. The money doesn't get to the employees. They don't get those pay raises. The companies don't hire extra people, and they end up paying for giving their cronies extra kickbacks, in the form of bonuses. That's happened too. But more often than not, additional additional taxing on businesses can be devastating if not implemented correctly. So we say if we tax the rich, it will pay for those socialized programs and components of our society that we're wanting to see socialized. I think you can pick and choose. Yes, I'm not a socialist, but I do believe that you can implement certain things to make a society better. If it hurts the people, if the people are not employed, it puts their backs against the wall. It's had the opposite effect of what people like Bernie Sanders are wanting. And the amount of money that's needed to restructure our society and implement these social programs, we don't have the structure. To create the structure, it would take, God, I don't even want to quote numbers. My question is would the amount of taxation be enough? And if those companies that you tax go under, then where does that leave the working class and the middle class family? When I hear Ocasio-Cortez, talk about wanting, the pie in the sky dream of socialized education and, all these other things, it sends me a bit chilly, knowing what I know about certain parts of the economy. The thin air theory is done. And I think there is believe it or not, a positive cynicism that's coming from the American public. It's not enough to say that you want us to have free education. You want us to have free health care, which, we really do. We really would love that. It would be a privilege that I think all Americans could appreciate. But now we're not, it's not enough to say that you want it. We're now asking, how do you plan to give that to us? And it's in those instances that the liberal, not the liberal, but the socialist argument falls apart in the context of the United States, in our structure. They can never explain how it's going to be paid for. It never leaves the theory stage. It never becomes in practice. There never is anything to truly benchmark to show the results if implemented correctly. I think that's a no-go for the American public now. We want to know the bottom line. And while liberals rant and rave over the moral fiber of Donald Trump and the lack of ethics of Donald Trump, the short-term accomplishments of the man are being felt by his audience. And many times, for the average person looking to hold on, it is about the bottom line. These notions of higher aspirations and morals and values, they don't pay the fucking bills. And this is where America's at. The average American needs some bills paid. He could give a rat's behind about who's in Donald Trump's bed, or whether his wife is a citizen or not. Could care less. Does that mean that these people are less moral, less ethical? No, it means that they've reached that point of bottom line. And those of us who are caught up on ideals such as ethics and morals and values, well, perhaps you have a little more wiggle room than the rest of us. Perhaps you have a level of comfort in which you can think about those loftier ideas. It's easy to say money isn't everything when you have it. It's easy to say, oh, bad weather isn't that bad when you have a roof over your head or you have an umbrella. Put yourself in the situation of the people that have become bottom line. And this part of the nation that's become bottom line are the people that put Trump in office. They helped to put that man in office. The day of rhetoric is over. Cuba Gooding Jr. said it the best. Show me the money. Right now, the money is trumping, pardon my pun, everything. And again, there can be short-sightedness because this surge of jobs, and I'm talking full-time jobs, I'm not talking part-time jobs. That's another thing people use to pad their statistics as far as, who generated what jobs, is they include many part-time jobs. I think if you look at the statistics of full-time jobs, I think you get a more accurate depiction of a true boost as far as people getting jobs that can actually take care of them. I think you see a more accurate show of who was effective. And I'm not saying who was or who wasn't the previous administration or this administration. I just say that you need to look and you need to consider full-time jobs as far as the rate of job growth during the administrations. This cynicism that America is feeling is going to make us ask those questions that we hadn't asked in the past. How are we going to go about doing this? How are we going to go about having this? If something is socialized, money's coming from somewhere. It's being pulled from somewhere. How does it affect us? We're starting to look at the governments like used car salesmen. And the ones that get the best deals are the ones that ask the most questions. The citizens that ask the most questions get the best deal. I said it in a video before. They are not your friends. And if you don't ask, they won't tell. Stay positively cynical. As much of an oxymoron as that is. And ask the hard question. Ask the bottom line question until you get the bottom line answer, and then make your informed decision. Take care, everyone.